if there's boys who have clicked on this video just because they're a little bit curious, I know that you hate women talking about like vaginas, discharge, tampons, periods, all that sort of stuff, and it makes you either go a bit bleh, or makes you a little bit creepy and pervy. You should watch this video because I can guarantee there's a woman in your life, whether it's your girlfriend, your wife, your sister, your mum, your auntie, your friend, whatever, that, you know, this is relevant to. And if any of them are umming and ahhing about it, you can go to them with some knowledge and say, look, stop being a, well, what's a good word that's not un-PC, stop being an absolute wally and just go and sort it out. So boys, don't think you're off the hook, that you're scot-free. You can have some positive influence on the ladies in your life too. And I hope you're checking your bits too, by the way. I know not all men are great at keeping an eye on their bits because they're embarrassed, but it's really important. So now, a few weeks ago I got the dreaded letter telling me it was time for my next smear test. So after a bit of umming and ahhing, which I usually do, I have booked it in and it is happening today. This is still something we need to raise awareness of because I know from the statistics that not enough people are responding to these letters and taking action and booking a smear test. So I thought, as I've got one today, I would talk you through it before and after because it would be fresh in my mind and just show you that really there's nothing to be worried about. Okay. So I'm back from the smear test, and as always, it was not a traumatic experience at all. It was over very quickly, painless, and the nurse was extremely lovely. But before I get to that and actually what happened, I'm just going to talk about how you get to that point. So you should receive a letter when it's your time for a smear test. So it's usually shortly after your 25th birthday or so. So I'll just read what the letter kind of states. This is my second one, so I can't remember if the first one was different, but anyway. So, dear Miss Eggleton, I'm writing to invite you to come for a cervical screening test. Cervical screening is a free and confidential service offered by the NHS to all women aged 25 to 64. Screening takes place every 3 years for women aged 25 to 49 and every 5 years for women aged 50 to 64. Some women are invited more often if they have an inadequate or abnormal result, or if they need to follow up after treatment for abnormal cells. So information about cervical screening and the recall process is included in the enclosed leaflet. The leaflet also explains about another test that may be carried out on your screening sample if your screening result is mildly abnormal. So to make your appointment, call either your GP or local clinic who will offer you a date and time. Alternatively, you can contact us for information about clinics in your area. Your result will be sent to your home and to your GP, and the person taking your test will be able to tell you when to expect to get your results. Cervical screening, like other medical tests, is not perfect. It might find every abnormality of the cervix. If you have unusual symptoms like discharge or irregular bleeding, don't wait for your next test, but talk to your GP or the person who did your last test. So I'm going to talk about my first cervical smear test to begin with, and I've got to admit that I was a little bit naughty because I put it off and off. I got the letters, in fact I got 2 or 3, and I still ignored them. Like a lot of people, I was worried about it, and I'd make excuses saying I was too busy, didn't have time, or it's the wrong time in my cycle, because ideally they want you to kind of go in the middle of the cycle because they don't want you to be on and bleeding when they're doing the test. So I'd always make out that, oh no, I'm really busy during that time so I can't do it, and would just put it off and off. And I think the things in my head that were kind of preventing me from just getting it done were, are they going to tell me that I'm abnormal down there, that it doesn't look right, that I'm a freak? Are they going to tell me that I've got something else going on there that I've caught or got from someone or something? Even though at that point I don't think I'd even been very active, and particularly hadn't had unsafe sex. I thought that I of course would be told that I have cervical cancer and that would be the end of everything. all these sorts of things went into my head. Oh, I was obviously scared that it might hurt, because I remember at school there used to be so many stories about cervical smears, and everyone would say things like scraping the insides and scratching the insides, which I'm going to tell you is not what happens at all. So yeah, I did put it off for ages, and then I finally did it, and I thought to myself, I have been a right plonker here, because it was over in a flash. The nurse that was doing it was so lovely. She put me at complete ease, and it didn't feel like a big deal or a scary deal or an embarrassing deal at all. And it wasn't even uncomfortable, to be honest. Actually, it didn't go quite to plan, because I got a letter when I was expecting the results. I thought it was a letter with the results, but in fact it was saying that I was going to have to come back and do the test again, because now and again they perhaps don't get enough cells to test, or the little pot gets damaged on the way to the testing area, or perhaps the stuff they got too much of other material that they didn't get enough of the cells that they need to test, that sort of thing. So I wasn't to be alarmed, but it did need to be done again so I could get, you know, as accurate results as possible. So that was annoying, yes, but for the sake of what it takes, it was less than 5 minutes, you know, you've got to just suck it up and do it. Suck it up. So I'm going to read you a few bits from the NHS cervical screening pamphlet, just in case some of you haven't got them yet, or just want to know a bit more about it. So what is cervical screening? Well, it is not a test for diagnosing cervical cancer. It's a test to check the health of the cervix, which is the lower part of the womb, often called the neck of the womb. For many women, the test results show that everything is fine, but for around 1 in 20 women, the test shows changes in cells that can be caused by many things. Most of these changes will not lead to cervical cancer. And cervical screening is also introducing testing for human papillomavirus, HPV, which can sometimes lead to abnormal changes in the cervix. So there's a bit more about that, but like a lot of these things, they often don't show symptoms, so that's why it's really important to go, just so they can check out things like that. So cervical cancer can be prevented. The signs that it may develop can be spotted early, so it can be stopped before it even gets started. Around 750 women die of cervical cancer in England each year. However, many of those who develop it have not been screened regularly, and not going for cervical screening is one of the biggest risk factors for developing cervical cancer. Now, they do say that obviously all women from the ages of 25 to 64 should be going, and obviously there has been argument that the age that it starts should be lowered, because there have been some really tragic cases of people in their early 20s, you know, succumbing to the disease. So that's still an ongoing discussion, I believe. But as with anything, I think if you have a feeling something's not right with your body, you've just got to go to doctors and just hammer it home to them till someone listens to you. But anyway, they say it is more common if you smoke. Another reason to quit, ladies and gents. I guess this is more directed to ladies actually, but gents, you should as well. First had sex at an early age. I guess that means because there's more time for those abnormal cells to develop, particularly if you've got the HPV virus. And if you've had several sexual partners, or have had a sexual partner who's had several other partners, or if you take immunosuppressant drugs, for example, after an organ transplant. And there's some other things here, but I don't want to go through the whole leaflet, because that's what Googling and going to the doctors is for, and you can get probably top knowledge from GPs, whereas I'm just reading off a pamphlet. But anyway, after you've had your first one, if all is fine, you'll be invited back every 3 years, but then when you turn 50, you'll be invited every 5 years. So what will happen during your test? The doctor will tell you to lie down on a couch. They will gently okay, so I'm going to talk about what happened today, because that's what we're getting onto now in the leaflet. So before I go to my smear test, I always make sure I neaten myself up down there. So I have a bath as close to the time as possible, just so I'm not self-conscious about hygiene and things like that. I get the razor out, and if you're a waxer or whatever, maybe you'd want to do that few days before, I don't know, so it's not raw. So I do that, but obviously I don't think that's necessary. That's purely just so I'm more relaxed about, you know, showing my nether regions to a stranger. Sod's law, today I used a crappy razor and nicked myself a few places, so I told the nurse when I went in, sorry, it's a bit of a bomb site down there, not as nice as it could be, so apologies in advance. But she kindly informed me that her feet were in a pretty bad state, so she was feeling a bit self-conscious as well. You know, we're all different, we're all unique, so don't worry that she's going to think yours is weird or abnormal. You know, she's seen, the nurse, she will have seen hundreds if not thousands of fannies, and she's not even thinking about, you know, the aesthetics of things. She's purely there to do her job, so don't fret about that. So I chose to wear a dress today, so I didn't have to, you know, take trousers down and stuff like that. I could take my knickers off and put them on the chair and kind of maintain some modesty, but that doesn't matter because they give you this blue kind of kitchen towel stuff to put over while you wait for her to get on with the job, I guess. So to start off with, get a speculum, and they will heat it up and they test the temperature on your leg, or maybe in your inner thigh, to just check it's not too hot, not too cold before they insert. And they put in the speculum into the vagina, basically just to open it up so they can see. So there's kind of a bit of, you can feel a bit like as they widen it. What the word is? What's that instrument? I'm trying to think. That like DIYers use. Anyway, yeah, so it cranks you open and holds you open. So she's got a really good view of the area that she needs to get to, which is the cervix. For me, I'd forgotten this last time. I could have helped her out and told her this was the case, but she found that the small speculum wasn't right for me because apparently I have a shy and retiring cervix. She says some are friendly and give her a nice wave, but mine is very, as I said, shy and retiring, and it's quite low in the body, so which is fine. Like I said earlier, we're all different and it all kind of sits slightly differently in everyone's bodies, but mine is quite low, so she had to use one that's longer and down so she could get down to it. So basically what I'm saying, the small one didn't work, so she had to take that one out and she got the long one, so we had to kind of do it again and put that in, and after a few coughs she said she could see the cervix. Once we got to that point, then she got the little brush instrument, went in and just brushed the inside to get all the cells. Now they often say that this tickles or there's some slight scratching, but actually for me, I've never been able to feel anything, and I guess that's another example of how different all our bodies are and how we're all different sensitivity wise and that sort of thing. So yeah, so I don't actually feel anything. The only slight uncomfortable bit is when she's putting the speculum in, particularly because I had the larger one. So that is just slightly uncomfortable. It's completely bearable, and it's not even worth mentioning, to be honest. She then puts the brush-like device into a little pot and just washes it around to make sure all the cells are being dropped into the liquid that's going to be sent off for testing. They're going to be put on a slide eventually and examined under a microscope. So when she does that, you'll see that there's sometimes a bit of blood on there because obviously the tissue inside the cervix is very fragile, it's very delicate, so it's likely to cause a bit of bleeding, and that's totally normal, as is spotting after you've had a cervical smear, just a little bit of spotting, so you might want to put a tissue or just a really thin panty liner in afterwards. So far so good on that front for me today. I haven't had any, so that's good. The key to this is just relaxing, because if your body is relaxed, everything will get inserted a lot easier, and the discomfort will be very minimal. It's like when they say when you have sex, if you're tense when you have sex for the first time, it can be more painful than it needs to be. So just make sure you're relaxed, take some deep breaths, and it's over in just a few minutes. Just a little PS for those that are active in the bedroom at the moment. The question here is, can I have sex before the test? If you use a spermicide, a barrier method of contraception, so like a condom, or a lubricant jelly, you should not use these 24 hours before the test, as the chemicals may affect the test. So that's good if you want to get out of having to have sex if you're a bit over it, you know. So here is how reliable is cervical screening. Early detection and treatment can prevent around 75% of cancers developing, but like other screening tests, it is not perfect. You probably already know that. Nothing is 99% accurate, so, but it's a step in the right direction, and if it gets caught, then brilliant. Okay, so it may not always detect early cell changes that may lead to cancer, and normal cells on your slide may not be recognised because sometimes they do not look much different from normal cells. There may be very few abnormal cells on the slide, or the person reading your slide may miss the abnormality. About 1 in 20 tests have to be taken again because you may have an infection which needs treating before a clear slide can be made. The cervical cells on your slide may have been hidden by blood or mucus. So that's what I was saying about you don't want to go when you're on your period, or if you've got too much discharge or an infection. There may not have been enough cervical cells on the slide to give an accurate assessment. Your sample may not have been properly prepared, or the slide may have been broken. So as I said earlier, mine are broken en route, so that's why I had to redo it. So all going well, you'll get a letter saying all is fine for now and they'll see you in 3 years. But I've got to say, quite a number of my friends actually have come back with a letter saying they've had abnormal cells. Obviously, initially that might be a bit scary, a bit shocking, but I must tell you not to panic, because abnormal cells doesn't mean cancer or that you're going to get cancer. They just notice there's something that either needs to be checked again or just needs to be monitored more regularly. So some of my friends need to go back for smears just more regularly and for checkups, so every 6 months or a year instead of the usual 3 years. And some of my friends have had to go and have procedures where they've had to have the cells burnt. Obviously it's not ideal, but obviously that is a far better thing to have to go through than, you know, the worst case scenario. So they've all said it's been absolutely fine and the nurses have been great and it's been dealt with brilliantly. So if that does happen, don't panic. And like this pamphlet says, 1 in 20 will actually have abnormal results. So it's not uncommon and it's not the end of the world. So really don't panic. So what does it mean if I'm called back for another screening test? This usually means that your samples did not show up clearly, so we need to take another one. This is called an inadequate result. On the other hand, screening may have found some small changes in the cells of the cervix. If abnormal changes known as, I'm not going to try and pronounce that word, are detected, you will have what is called an abnormal result. If you have borderline or mild changes found at the screening, you may be asked to come back again after 6 months for a repeat test. So that was what some of my friends had, and the others had the slightly more serious result. This is routine for any women with borderline or mild changes if their screening sample hasn't been tested for HPV. Your results letter will let you know if you need to come back for another screening test. So back to what happens if you have abnormal changes. So they may simply ask you to come back for more cervical screening tests because the cells quite often return to normal all by themselves, so then there's nothing that needs to be done. But they may ask you to go to hospital for closer examination, which is called a colposcopy. Like I said, quite a few of my friends have had this, so I've spoken to them about it and they said it's fine. Obviously they'd rather they didn't have to do it, but it's absolutely fine, and it's sorted everything out for now. It is a minor procedure and is usually done in an outpatient clinic. This means you will not have to stay overnight. So basically, I know there's a big campaign going on at the moment regarding smear tests and encouraging people to go, and I think the lovely Tiny Twist is on board with that, with the official people doing that. But as I was going for a smear test, I thought it'd be silly not to talk about it, as it's fresh in my mind and I can tell you from my own point of view what it was like and how it's gone, etc. So if you have been putting it off, don't be silly. It's so quick. Like, I can't have been in there longer than 5 minutes, and that's with me having to change from the little one to the big one inserting. So, you know, it's a few minutes out your day and it could save your life. So it's just silly not to, isn't it? And thanks for watching. I'll let you know when I get my results. Whatever they are, I will talk you through them. Hope it's been interesting or put some of you at ease.